What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important levels to watch for tomorrow. Let's get a very unbiased understanding of how the market may move going into tomorrow. I'm going to break down some very big news that just came out. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So anyways, what's going on with the markets? We had a very interesting day. The market started out relatively weak. We saw this thing selling off as we opened on SPY. Then we saw some buyers slowly step in. At the very end of the day, during the last 30 minutes, they launched SPY back up into the green. So the buyers still came back and they're still showing life. But the question is, which way will we move considering all the OPEX expirations and all the data that's coming out for tomorrow? And the answer is it depends on what the market makers wants to do. So for tomorrow, we have some housing data coming out in the morning. We're going to be watching to see what this looks like. Then we also have a bunch of Fed speakers. We have Barr, Collins, Daly, and just a couple of others speaking throughout the day. And then for earnings, we have, I think, Ross coming out very soon, just a couple of others for tomorrow. Nothing too significant. What's going to be more significant is going to be the options and the expirations for tomorrow. We have almost or a little bit over 1.3 million calls expiring and over 3 million puts expiring. Max pain is at 433 with a 2.3 puts to call ratio. If I was a market maker, there are two things that could happen, okay? If the market pumps hard tomorrow because of this, if there's a big surprise, the market makers could try to squeeze shorts. And if they do that, it not only does it look a little trickier for the charts to achieve that, but if they somehow achieve that, this could benefit them for squeezing even more shorts. But at the same time, most calls are already in the money. So if I was the market maker, I would say that it would be more beneficial to try to close this closer to max pain and bring the market down. But sometimes you never know because there's so much manipulation and so much trickery in this market. So basically, either way, whichever way the market moves can still benefit market makers. If they choose to squeeze more shorts, it can benefit them. If they bring the market back down closer to max pain and they drop SPY a couple of dollars, it could still benefit them because once again, some of the call holders could also experience some pain, and most of the put holders will still experience pain anyways. So it's a win-win for them. It doesn't really matter, which way they try to push the markets. They could benefit either way. But in my opinion, it would be a little bit more advantageous to get us closer to max pain to try to get some of these in the money calls out of the money. But that's just my opinion. It depends on what they want to do and what this looks like going into tomorrow. Some news came out about President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping. They basically met one another at the summit. And this was very important because the leaders agreed to allow for direct communications between their militaries, but nothing was mentioned about ongoing tax and tariffs in place between the US and China. And this was negative news for many investors, as there's still a lot of uncertainty about trade that's continuing and whether or not these tariffs are going to continue like this. So with that being said, I mean, this was not the best of news for different investors not getting what they were hoping for. As part of why some companies involved with China ended up dropping. We saw like Neo taking some hits, other Chinese companies, even Tesla got affected by this to some extent. Not to mention some more news about something Elon Musk said, not saying it's true or false, just saying that the news came out and there were interpretations of it. But now let's break down how on earth the charts are looking. Honestly, guys, we hit the upper Bollinger Band on SPY, and that typically tends to lead to sell-offs. But this time around, it has not happened yet. And the market's continuing to hold up. Historically, that's what tends to happen, but it hasn't happened thus far, and the market's continuing to see buyers defend. Now, I also mentioned that we had a head and shoulders like pattern on SPY. Instead of getting some kind of sell-off, the market's just continuing to extend that right shoulder, which makes me a little bit more, I would say, open-minded now that anything could happen, and we just want to be prepared for any trickery. So I wasn't necessarily wrong for telling you, in my opinion, that there was a risk of possible selling because of this head and shoulders like pattern, but it ended up not playing out just yet. And it still is a possibility, but we have to watch our levels just to be safe. And that's why it's going to depend on the market makers and what they try to do going into tomorrow. So it's a big day since we have so many options expiring. Here's the simple answer for how this is going to likely play out. We're in a range right now. SPY is stuck between 451.7 as resistance. That's where our supply zone happens to be. And our support happens to be around 448. If we lose 448, we're going to see a big rug pull and this thing can start dropping quite a bit. If we end up breaking out and we break 452, it's going to invalidate this head and shoulders and SPY is going to turn bullish. And there's going to be a surprise attack by the bulls to once again hurt more of these shorts. The best thing to do is just wait, okay? Don't just hop in immediately. Wait and see which way the market goes. We might pop a bit tomorrow morning as the market's holding up in the after hours, but we'll see if this thing gets a rejection or not. I expect a lot of trickery tomorrow because of these options, and it's really unpredictable because it depends on what the market makers are trying to do. Now, the question is this head and shoulders like pattern on SPY a trap, or are we going to see this play out? This will depend on, once again, what happens tomorrow and also with what we also see on the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, we're looking a little bit more bullish, but the head and shoulders makes me double-minded. So once again, guys, I wish I could predict this one around, but there's so much trickery in this market, lots of manipulation. We had 3 straight days where the market was just range bound for the most part. And with that being said, just watch your levels and we'll see what it does from here. Even though the daily candlestick's looking a bit more bullish, there could be manipulation to try to bring this thing back down. We'll just be patient. We'll see how it goes. So if we break 452, I'm turning bullish on SPY. If we break below 448, I'm going to turn a lot more bearish. Otherwise, we're range bound. That is, in my opinion, the plan for tomorrow. And it's just best to be very unbiased because of how much manipulation there is. On the triple Q, this was very interesting. We got a bullish close as well. It came down and tried to rebound as we saw buyers stepping in. So we'll see if we get a rebound tomorrow morning or not. But even if we do, we're going to have to see if Nvidia and other tickers try to help us as they're approaching some resistance. We got a decent close on the daily, but we're going to be watching this 4-hour time frame, which still has a bearish cross on the PPO. And we still have this head and shoulders like structure that is still valid. So what does this mean? The answer is if we turn bullish, you want to see this thing try to get back above 388, and this thing could push higher, but we still have a head and shoulders on the 30 minutes time frame that has not been validated. Let me just switch over to the 1-hour time frame just to show you some levels. So on the triple Q, if we want to turn bullish, you want to see it get back above 388. If we want to be bearish, you want to see this thing break below 382. As of right now, we're just trading sideways, not really doing a whole lot, very choppy. We were stuck between 386 and 383.5 today, going back and forth and back and forth. Not really the best of price actions. So we'll just wait and see what this thing does. We're at resistance right now. We'll see if this rejects or not, but just know that we'll wait and see if this is like a inverse cup and handle as well. That's like another way you could interpret this, or a head and shoulders. And I'm just going to be patient with this. I mean, I know it's not what you always want to hear me say, but at this point, I'm not a market maker. I don't know what those people are going to be doing. So we'll see what the market makers try to do, and we'll be watching our levels very, very carefully. Nvidia is looking a bit more bullish. It looks like it might try to push up a little bit higher as we got a decent close. We saw this thing rebound even harder than expected. But here's the thing about Nvidia. We have resistance at this 495 area, and we have this imbalance at 499. If it breaks this resistance tomorrow, we see this thing push higher, it's going to likely try to fill this imbalance and retest 498 to 500. If we're bullish, you want to see Nvidia not just test this, but break out of this, break the high and see 504. If that happens, it's going to launch the market higher. If Nvidia pops a little bit more, and then we get another rejection of 498 to 500, expect a double top, and Nvidia could come right back down. It all depends on this resistance and what Nvidia does. So if we get this like move, let's see if we reject like this would cause the market to possibly come up and down and eventually slow down. Or do we break out of this, and turn bullish and start testing our upper, resistance? We'll be watching this very carefully for tomorrow. It's a very big test. And don't forget, OPEX is going to affect this. So we'll be very patient looking at this going into tomorrow. For a couple of other tickers, we have Apple stock, which is still in the middle, very choppy, very sideways. Now, one thing that I want to mention is that this thing is on an uptrend. It's still holding up decently, but we got a rejection off 191, and we're going to be watching this tight resistance up here. So on Apple, I just want to call out something about it. Looking at the RSI, we still technically have a bearish divergence that's trying to develop, but there's no sign of it playing out yet as Apple has hit some resistance. So it depends on if we could break 191 or not. If Apple breaks 191, it's going to start pushing even higher to these higher levels, and we can see this thing uptrend very, very nicely and get very close to 192. If we reject and break below this support right here, if we end up losing support, you want to see it break below 188, and you're going to turn a lot more bearish. We'll be watching this very carefully going into tomorrow, so the best thing to do is just be patient, and we'll see how it goes. Finally, for Tesla stock, Tesla's looking very, very interesting. So the news involving China and some remarks from Elon Musk have led to this selling off. When it comes to Elon Musk, like I said before, I'm not going to talk about specifically what he said because, for the sake of this channel, I don't really want to do that. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm not saying that what the media is saying is true or not. I'm simply saying that what he said led to lots of controversy amongst media outlets and other individuals out there, which is not the best for Tesla. That is the honest truth. Um, could this guy have said something different? Sure, but honestly, guys, at this point, let's just see if the market remembers this for tomorrow or not. We have something very big basically happening. So if Tesla ends up continuing to sink, you want to be watching 230 as key support. If we lose this, if we lose the key support at 230, expect it to come down to fill this gap most likely, very close to the 20 EMA at 224 to 225. That's going to be a bearish move if we lose the 200 EMA on the daily. If we hold this, if we balance off 230, we'll be watching it try to make its way back up to these other levels. I think it's going to rebound in the morning, retest 238 or so to 235, and we'll see if it rejects or not. So here's the move you'll be watching for on Tesla. Basically, once this thing rebalances, watch 235, the zone as resistance. We're going to be watching this going into tomorrow. Does Tesla test this? Do we go a little higher towards 238? And if we do, will Tesla keep holding these levels? If we get a squeeze by market makers, this could drag Tesla up all the way back up to these higher levels and could just try to make a full recovery. But hold on, guys, don't turn too bullish yet. If Tesla ends up rejecting, let me show you, we kind of like rebound like this. If we reject off 235 to 238, we come back down like this, you're going to be watching 230. Does Tesla hold this 230? Because if the market starts sinking because of market makers and 230 breaks, I expect Tesla to start sinking back down to fill this gap. I'm going to be watching for 225 or even the 224 level. So it depends on this test. Do we bounce a little bit and then reject on Tesla? Do we end up breaking below 230, which is where our 200 EMA happens to be? That would be the bearish case. Or do we end up holding it and start continuing to break out with the market? Either one of these are possibilities. I'm going to be waiting to see what the market makers cause on OPEX. I'm going to be watching to see what their intentions are, because either way, they're going to be fine. So we'll be watching that very carefully. With that being said, guys, I'm just going to be very brief with the ending of this video. For SoFi, we're talking about some downside. We got to move to the downside. Watch the support at 6.5. If we test this, we might test 6.5 and then try to bounce. So look for a potential drop and bounce on SoFi. But if the whole market starts sinking, it could drop below that. So we'll be watching it carefully. But I think 6.5 may be tested. So we'll see if it bounces or not. The Russell 2000 is a little bit weak right now. It's looking a bit more bearish. You're going to be looking for a retest of this resistance right here at 177 and a rejection. If we lose 174 points, I think it's actually 175. If we lose that, 173.76 is going to be tested. That's where we have this gap support. And if that breaks, it's going to turn more bearish. So I do anticipate a little pop and possibly a drop. We'll be watching to see if that happens. Microsoft is continuing to break out. We had 376. I was saying in my video from yesterday that we might see this thing either pop a little bit more than drop or drop from where we were at. Instead, this thing just continued to rip out thanks to some bullish news. So we're going to be watching this very carefully. We still have a bearish divergence that's developing. It's still continuing to develop, but there's no sign of this thing breaking down just yet. If Microsoft rejects and it starts sinking back down towards 370, that's going to be bearish. If it keeps breaking out, the next level may be very close to 377.5. That's the psychological level. So we're just going to be waiting to see which way it goes. We have a bearish divergence that suggests it might reject soon. And we'll have to wait and see. There's no sign of rejecting just yet as it's still holding up. But it's a bit overbought, so just be very careful. On AMD, we're at resistance at this 120 area. If this thing tries to break out, well, it really depends if we break it or not. We have a head and shoulders like pattern that's developing on the charts, which means it might sell off going into tomorrow. If we're going to be bearish, you want to see it lose 118, and it's going to come down to 114. But if this is just a trap, we want to see if it can break 122. If 120 breaks, watch 122. If that breaks, it's going to turn bullish and start pushing for 124. All right, so if 122 breaks, we're bullish. If this high right here breaks, we're bullish. If it fails to break, then we end up sinking to 118 and lose it. We're going to turn bearish. I hope that's as clear as possible. On something else such as SPX, SPX is also, once again, just trading sideways. It also had the head and shoulders like pattern, but it's not really playing out just yet. We'll have to see if this ends up getting a rejection or not. You could even interpret this as a possible like inverse cup and handle. But honestly, guys, I'm not holding a view right now. I'm going to be very unbiased and open-minded because that's how I think is the best way to look at the markets. Be unbiased and we'll see how this opens. The VIX also popped a bit. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders on the VIX, which suggests it might break out. We need to see this thing get above 14.5. If it breaks that, it could start breaking out for 14.7. And that could be bearish for the markets. So look for this inverse head and shoulders to play out or not. If this is just a trap and it starts failing, then we'll be very patient anyways. But this suggests that there is technically some risk for the markets. The SQQQ tried to come up, but it ended up coming back down at the end of the day. But we have another potential inverse head and shoulders on it. We need to see this thing try to break this resistance around 16.6. If it breaks that, watch for a nice push up because the market may slow down, especially on the QQQ. No signs have come just yet. The dollar is completely flat, it's not really doing much. There's a possible inverse head and shoulders, but like I said, still kind of flat, so we have to wait for it. On Coinbase, we're going to be watching the chart very carefully. Coinbase is still kind of flat as well, not really doing a whole lot. If this thing turns bullish, you want to see this thing try to break out. If we get a bullish break from here, we're going to be watching for a test of 98. If that breaks, watch it try to fill this gap towards 99.5. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose support around 95.6. If that fails us, then 93.4 is going to be the next level. On Google, if we're bullish, you want to see this bullish wedge play out. You're going to be looking for a push for 140. But once we hit that imbalance, we have some tight resistance up there. When you look at the 4-hour time frame, and although this is looking a bit more bullish, watch for resistance around 140. We're getting very close to it, so we want to be very careful. If we're bearish, we want to see 136 break, then a sink to the downside towards 133. We'll see if this thing rejects or not. Just want to be patient on it, but it looks a bit more bullish. Amazon is looking very flat. We have a head and shoulders like pattern. If Amazon kind of pops a bit and rejects, look for a move down towards this 138 area. It might just remain range bound for some time before it continues. We'll see if it closes above or below the 50 EMA. That's going to be a key support. It looks like it might pop and drop as the most likely possibility, looking relatively weak. And Meta is continuing to rip. There's no sign of this thing breaking down yet. But the thing about Meta is we have a possible head and shoulders. If we're bullish, you want to see it try to break 340. If we're bearish, you want to see it reject off 331 and start sinking for 325. This head and shoulders makes me a little bit concerned, so we'll be waiting to see. I think there's a slight risk for the downside for Meta, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see how it goes. All right, guys, I know that you guys want me to give you predictions all the time. This time around, I think for most tickers, I give you some predictions, but this time around, I can't give you the best prediction for SPY because we're getting some signals that suggest that it might reject, it might come down. Other signals are looking bullish, so it's very mixed right now. The best thing to do is just be patient and see which levels break to see which way this is going to go. This is one of those days where you need to be patient because of the market makers and their levels of manipulation. They may manipulate the market tomorrow based off these expirations. So we'll wait and see how it goes. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. There is a risk of the head and shoulders playing out that I've listed, but at the same time, it could just be a trap. So I'll just wait and see. I'm going to be very patient going into tomorrow. Patience is a virtue. Patience is key in this market. So we'll just be very, very ready for what's about to come. All right, that's it for now. Thank you and peace out.